In 2019, archaeologists excavated a Viking grave in Sweden that had been studied for over 130 years. For all that time, it had been held up as the textbook example of a high-status Viking warrior burial. Weapons, a war horse, a complete set of gaming pieces used for military strategy. Every marker of a professional fighter and battlefield commander. Then DNA testing became advanced enough to settle something researchers had quietly debated. The skeleton was female, and she wasn't an anomaly. She wasn't a myth. She was a real woman, buried with full military honors, whose bones told a story of a life spent in physical training and combat. Here's what that story, and dozens like it throughout history, reveals about what the female body is actually capable of, and why the physical standards we assume are natural are really just the result of what we've allowed and demanded from women across different eras. The evidence is more surprising than you think. We have a deeply ingrained cultural story about physical capability and gender. Men are strong. Women are not. Men fight. Women don't. And we've told the story so consistently for so long that most people assume it's biology, that it's simply the natural order written into our bodies. But here's what history keeps interrupting that story with. Women, when trained, when demanded of physically, when given the same conditions as men, have repeatedly demonstrated physical capabilities that shatter the comfortable narrative. Not in every case. Not without biological differences that absolutely exist and matter, but in ways that are so far beyond what most people today, men or women, can do, that the comparison becomes genuinely uncomfortable. Because the question isn't really, what can women do compared to men? The real question is, what happens to any human body, male or female, when civilization stops demanding anything from it? And the answer to that question, sitting in the archaeological record, in skeletal analysis, in the historical accounts of cultures that trained women as warriors, is a lot more interesting than the story we've been told. Let's go deeper into that Viking grave, known academically as BJ 581 from Birka, Sweden. When researchers did full osteological analysis of the skeleton, meaning they studied the actual bone structure, they found something significant. The bones showed markers consistent with a life of intense, repeated physical loading, the kind of skeletal adaptation that comes from years of weapons training, riding, and combat. This wasn't a woman buried with a warrior's belongings as a symbolic gesture. This was a woman whose body itself recorded a warrior's life. And she's not alone in the Norse record. The Old Norse texts describe women called skjoldmur, shield maidens. And while scholars have long debated how literally to read those accounts, the skeletal evidence is increasingly supporting the idea that female warriors weren't purely mythological. But here's what makes this physically remarkable in the modern context. Viking weapons, long swords, axes, shields, were not light. A typical Viking sword weighed between 1 to 1.5 kilograms, but wielding it effectively in combat required generating force through the entire kinetic chain: legs, hips, core, shoulders. A war axe required explosive rotational power. Shield work demanded sustained isometric strength in the shoulders and arms. These are not gentle physical demands. These are athletic outputs that, if you tested the average person today, male or female, the majority would fail to meet. The woman in that grave met them. Her bones say so. Now let's go further back, because the Vikings aren't even close to the oldest evidence we have. The Scythians were a nomadic civilization that dominated the Eurasian steppes from roughly 700 BC to 300 BC. Greek historians wrote about them. Herodotus described a tribe he called the Amazons, fierce female warriors who rode horses and fought in battle. For centuries, scholars assumed this was myth, Greek exaggeration, a fantasy culture invented to explore ideas about gender and power. Then archaeologists started digging up Scythian burial mounds, called kurgans, across what is now Ukraine, Russia, and Kazakhstan. Out of roughly 2,500 Scythian burials that have been excavated, about 300 contained women buried with weapons: bows, iron swords, battle-scarred armor. And crucially, skeletal analysis of these women showed something extraordinary. Repeated, asymmetric bone stress consistent with years of archery training. Specifically, the draw arm showed greater bone density and muscle attachment markers than the non-draw arm. Their spines showed the characteristic curvature that develops from thousands of hours on horseback. Several skeletons showed healed wounds, injuries from combat, survived and recovered from. These weren't ceremonial burials. These were women whose bodies had been shaped by the same physical demands as the male warriors buried beside them. And here's the kicker for the modern comparison. Scythian-mounted archery required drawing a composite bow, which generated draw weights of 60 to 100 pounds at full gallop, while stabilizing your lower body independently of your upper body and maintaining enough accuracy to be effective in battle. Now let's address biology directly, because this is where the conversation has to be honest to be credible. Yes, on average, biological males have greater absolute upper body strength than biological females. Testosterone drives greater muscle protein synthesis. Male skeletal structure, on average, supports greater force production in certain movement patterns. These differences are real. Anyone telling you they don't exist is not being straight with you. But here's what those differences don't mean, and this is where the modern narrative goes wrong. The Scythians and Vikings aren't the only examples. History is full of cultures that, for various reasons, trained women to the same physical standard as men and got the results you'd expect from that training. The Dahomey Agoge, the all-female military regiment of the Kingdom of Dahomey in West Africa, active from the 17th to 19th century, were so feared by opposing armies that French colonial soldiers wrote home describing them as the most physically formidable opponents they encountered. Their training involved endurance runs, obstacle courses, hand-to-hand combat, and weapons drills that ran from before sunrise to after sunset. European observers, who arrived with significant assumptions about female physical capability, left repeatedly stunned. On Abigacia in feudal Japan, female warriors trained in the use of the naginata, a pole weapon, were not just ceremonial figures. Historical records document specific women who fought and killed in battle, and whose physical training was taken as seriously as that of male samurai. Queen Tru of 3rd century Vietnam reportedly led troops into battle against Chinese forces and was described in historical accounts as possessing extraordinary physical strength and combat ability. Though, as always with ancient accounts, some allowance for legend is appropriate. What these cultures share isn't mythology. It's a common variable. When physical training is demanded of women from youth, and when that training is treated as seriously as it is for men, the results are serious warriors. The outlier in human history isn't the woman warrior. It's the era, largely the last few centuries of Western culture, that decided women shouldn't be physically trained at all. We have engineered physical demand almost entirely out of daily life. And the result is a population, again male and female, that is physically less capable than the women buried in those ancient warrior graves. The Scythian archer, whose skeleton shows years of hard training, would be an elite athlete by today's standards. The Agoge soldier, who ran drills at dawn in West African heat, would destroy most modern military fitness tests. The Viking woman, whose bones recorded a life of weapons training, would walk into most gyms today and outperform the majority of people in them. This isn't about making anyone feel bad. It's about something more interesting than that. It's about recognizing that physical capability for anyone of any sex is almost entirely a product of what is demanded and trained. Biology sets the parameters. Culture and training determine where within those parameters you actually end up. And for most of human history, the cultures that needed women to be physically capable got physically capable women. Full stop. Here's what I want you to take from this. The story that women are inherently, naturally, inevitably less physically capable than men is not supported by history. What history supports is a more complicated and more empowering truth. Humans become what they train for. And for long stretches of human history across multiple continents and cultures, women trained for and achieved extraordinary physical capability. The question is what we're demanding of ourselves, and whether we're willing to meet it. Drop a comment and tell me which of these warrior cultures surprise you most. If you want more content that digs into the real history of human physical capability, make sure you're subscribed. See you in the next one.